State Department is offering a $20 million reward for information leading to the arrest of a member of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Shahram Poursafi is allegedly working to arrange a revenge killing of John Bolton, former Trump administration national security advisor and UN ambassador. Bolton, of course, along with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, a long list of others, former Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley, Defense Secretary Mark Esper, CENTCOM Commander General Frank McKenzie. They're all under 24-hour protection because of Iran's death threats targeting killings ordered by their head of the Revolutionary Guard, Iran's general, well, for the killing, rather, of Iran's General Qasem Soleimani in 2020. This is the revenge. Former National Security Advisor and U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, has been living under this threat. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us. Your reaction to the State Department at least putting a $20 million reward for the Iranian who has issued this death threat against you?
Well, I think it's certainly entirely warranted from a law enforcement point of view. This is the sort of activity that the Justice Department and other parts of law enforcement at the federal level have been working on. I do think that we should understand what Iran is up to, however, as more of a national security threat. That this is activity that they've engaged in that threatens a lot of people, including American civilians, exiles from Iran and Europe and elsewhere. But when they come after U.S. government officials, current or former, for doing their job, really, that's an attack on the United States government itself. And I don't think staying in a passive mode about it is the best way to go. We know that this is more than idle speculation in Tehran. And in my case, it's laid out in a criminal complaint filed a couple of years ago. It's simply that the attempt failed. It's not that they weren't trying to kill people. It's that they were foiled by the FBI doing its very good work. So I think the U.S. position should be more proactive. I think Iran should not just worry about American threats. I think it should worry about kinetic action that we take to tell the Iranians that the price they would pay for continuing is going to be severe.
And I want to get your reaction to former President Trump talking about President Zelensky and about Trump's friendship with Vladimir Putin.
The president of Ukraine is in our country, and he's making little nasty aspersions toward your favorite president, me. But take a look at the war happening right now in Ukraine. It would have never happened if I were president, to start off with. And there didn't even have to be a settlement. It wouldn't have happened, period. Russia wouldn't have gone in. I spoke to Putin about it a lot. I got along very well with Putin.
So if Donald Trump is elected, will there be pressure, do you think, on President Zelensky to make concessions to Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think the risk is worse than that. I think Trump will probably move to cut off assistance. He's not going to say it in the middle of a campaign, but the things he has said, the things the vice presidential candidate, Senator Vance, has said, all indicate they think Russia should reap the fruits of victory. The Vance settlement plan leaves Russia in possession of the Ukrainian territory it now holds and would have Ukraine commit never to join NATO. I think in the Kremlin, Putin saying to himself, we should have asked for more. We would have gotten it. I think this is of a piece with what Trump's view of the whole conflict has been. And I think it's a further indication of the threat to NATO and how serious it would, the likelihood would be that once having disposed of Ukraine, Trump would move to withdraw from NATO as well.
Are you supporting Kamala Harris?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to vote for either one. I don't think either one is fit to be president for different reasons, and I'm not going to make a judgment between which one is less fit. I think it's going to be a bad 4 years for America. I just hope Republicans can gain control of the Senate and keep control of the House. But frankly, whichever one wins, we need responsible people as an anchor.
Thank you very much, John Bolton.